What's up, everybody? I am back with a new movie review for the month of November, starting the Thanksgiving review month. And typically, in case you don't know, every November to celebrate something like Thanksgiving in three different categories. Either a movie depicting like Native American culture, or food related stuff, or family related stuff, where it's like the centerpiece, of those each categories. I will be covering this biopic that is probably like probably the third time I've seen this since it came out. The Founder, starring Michael Keaton, is a biopic about the guy who didn't create the McDonald's restaurant, but franchised it and pretty much took over. Now, this, in my personal opinion, now he's a good businessman. However, like any good businessman, is a guy like this extremely cutthroat, and what he did was so like his name was Ray Kroc, and what he did was really scummy. It kind of reminds me of kind of like Seto Kaiba. If you know anything about Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh, he is like a really good businessman, very intelligent, but well, I don't think Kaiba would do something this far, but he could probably respect it. But he has done his own fair share of cutthroat things, like in order to pass a test, in order to get to earn the Kaiba name and the Kaiba Corporation and all this other stuff, he had to prove he's business savvy enough in order to prove himself. So he is loaned from his stepfather, loaned his millions of dollars, and he has to pay this back with interest within a year. But within a few days, he founds he ends up finding a company that treats his workers like family, buy it out, and threaten to put everybody out of business if he doesn't comply with his demands. So not only I'm kind of truncating this, but I'm just pointing out the fact that not only he manages to achieve his goal within a few days, didn't really need to take a whole year. He did it in a few days, and just like the fact that he's willing to, as like a young kid, willing to put out and bankrupt an entire business in order to get what he wanted, because nobody else, other than his brother, nobody else mattered. That's how freaking cutthroat he can be. But that's what I'm saying. Like Ray Kroc is probably like even worse than somebody like Kaiba, because he doesn't care about anybody. He doesn't have like a brother that he probably love and respect more than anybody else, kind of situation. But it's just like you gotta see for yourself and make your own determination from this movie. You might say like, hey, this guy's a scumbag, and morally, yes, he is. But most businessmen have that kind of mindset. Maybe not to that insane degree, but there are a significant amount of businessmen that are willing to backstab whoever they have to in order to get to the top and get what they need in order to, you know, earn more wealth or acquire certain industries or whatever. It takes a level of sociopath in order to do something like that, cold hearted. So, this is directed by John Lee Hancock, written by Robert Siegel, stars Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc, who won an award for this portrayal, a Capri Award for this portrayal. Nick Offerman as Richard McDonald, John Carroll Lynch as Maurice McDonald, Linda Carolini as Joan Smith, B.J. Novak as Harry J. Sonneborn, Laura Dern as Ethel Kroc, Justin Randall Brooke as Fred Turner, Kate Nealon as June Martino, Patrick Wilson as Rollie Smith, Griff First as Jim Zine, Wilbur Fitzgerald as Jerry Cullen, and Afnol Omolami as Mr. Merriman. The film opens as Ray Kroc is kind of like this traveling salesman of this gizmo, what do you call those? Prince Castle mechanisms that help, you know, make more milkshakes. Or a tool that, you know, that is used to make multiple milkshakes for restaurants. And of course, he's a struggling salesman. Even though he lives in his fancy house, but if you look up the history of Ray Kroc, his father, you know, he had troubles during the Great Depression, you know, made like a decent amount of money. So I guess it was like like the 50s. So of course, I guess at that time he could have afford a big house like that. It's not that too dissimilar to how I felt about the movie Father of the Bride, even though the main character, you know, owned a sneaker company that makes sneakers. He owns like a big house, even for the 90s. That's kind of crazy, but whatever. Then all of a sudden he gets a call from his secretary at the office saying that there was an order requested by the McDonald's brothers for 6 milkshake machines. He calls him up thinking it's some kind of mistake because he hasn't really, you know, got people to buy these things in a long while. But it's like, no, we're dead serious. You know, matter of fact, we want 8. So he ends up traveling all the way to California because you look it up, Ray Kroc is from Oak Park, Illinois. Illinois, my hometown. And Nick Offerman's hometown, Oak Park, actually. No, not Oak Park, Joliet. So there's a lot of my, you know, respect to my home state. You know? That's why I really, you know, like Nick Offerman a lot because it's like, you know, way to, you know, like represent Illinois as well as he has. Anyway, he travels all the way there and meets up with the brothers and their local, which they, you know, the kudos to the studio, people behind the scenes making sure they recreated the stand to exact specifications of how it was depicted back then, right down to the countertops and the machines that was used to make sure it's also up to code, everything like that. So, you know, what you see in this film is the exact, you know, replica of what it was like back then. Matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it, you know, the food back then, probably way better than like how McDonald's food is today. Not that it's necessarily crappy, but it's just like here's the thing. Before, Ray Kroc kind of mucked everything up by not maintaining the standards of the McDonald's brothers, how they, make the food with care, and they, pretty much Mondo Burger. I'm sorry, Ray pretty much Mondo Burger the entire thing. There was still like burgers, and even let's go up to like the 70s, still vastly different and vastly more like have like a good different taste to it than compared to today. Not that you can probably tell if you wasn't looking for it or even look it up. They definitely like, if you watch, Good Burger movie, when I make the reference Mondo Burger, how I'm describing this. It's just not the same. Even when I grew up in the 90s, even back then, fast food restaurants, not only, the food, is vastly different, it was also fun. If you look at how fast food restaurants buildings used to be, back in like from the 50s going on to like let's say like the early 2000s, like this up to maybe like 2005, the buildings alone look fun and inviting. It's a family kind of oriented structure. They have, there's very few McDonald's buildings that have the kids play area. Matter of fact, the only fast food restaurants that I can think of that actually have like play areas nowadays is Chick-fil-A, which that should be a biopic on its own, like the creation of the Chick-fil-A. That would be a very interesting kind of biopic. I would be interested in knowing about the founder of Chick-fil-A. That would be kind of interesting. However, besides all that, the buildings now, not even just McDonald's, but like KFC, Pizza Hut, Burger King, they used to be like a fun building to look at, and it kind of makes you want to find it. There's very few of them that actually have that kind of childlike appearance. It's like family, like a place where family congregate to eat together kind of thing. I think the only fast food place that even still has that kind of vibe is White Castle's, because it actually has to look like a White Castle, and at least it still maintains some level of integrity. Despite what you might say about White Castle food, which none of these fast food chains you should be eating on the regular. It should be like a treat, maybe like once a week, bare minimum. But at max, maybe maybe per month, maybe 4 times you can visit like a fast food spot. I'm just being, because depends on the person. Who knows? It might, per month, you might visit more than 4 times a particular fast food spot. But I'm just saying, like, you shouldn't eat these kind of things so much. It should be obvious, but these things should be a treat. Like maybe like a Friday or a Saturday night, or even like you want a late night Taco Bell or something like that, and you're out drinking and you need to get some some quick food that's still like is good, and it's fine. It's like, but obviously clearly don't have it every freaking day or every other day. Anyway, these buildings, aside from White Castle and maybe Taco Bell, they used to be like fun and inviting to look at. Oh well, Wendy's too. Wendy's still got like a good vibe to its building structure, but yeah, McDonald's looks so soulless now compared to how the buildings were over the years until maybe several, maybe 5 years or maybe a decade ago, who knows, when they start changing up the buildings. But then anyway, Croc goes to this stand. It's kind of stunned because it's still around the time when these these fast food spots, or these certain restaurant spots where the greaser heads and beatniks comes, like kind of like a drive-in kind of vibe, where you got like waitresses on roller skates, coming up to you with your order and stuff like that, which is a vibe, I gotta admit, because you gotta, to see these kind of things now, you gotta go to these kind of novelty 50s retro diner things nowadays in order to see that kind of aesthetic. Because I don't know, it's kind of like for lack of a better word, kind of a novelty kind of shop or something like that. Where you want to, you walk in, you kind of like a time capsule kind of situation. I really want to visit one of these things. I don't think I ever visited one of those, retro 50s diner kind of things, where they try to recreate everything as much as possible so you get the same feel when it was, at its peak. Um, uh, and of course, Croc is kind of stunned because not only is it more family than it is kind of like beatniks, but there's no drive-in. People were, there's no, plates, no utensils. It's all like through the wrapper and everything like that. And when he tries the burger, it's like amazing. It's like, oh my god. Then he meets the brothers, and they show him how, how the function, essentially how the what's that saying? How the sausage is made, in a sense, but in this case, it doesn't gross you out. Where you see like how they tell him how they started out, and because they wanted to work in the Hollywood business, but they suffered through a financial crisis. Or at least the U.S. suffering through a financial crisis at the time. It wasn't getting any work. They bought this kind of hot dog stand. They kind of retro, like fitted it to make it like a good burger stand, and they pretty much like birthed the original McDonald's. And then they also wanted to have like a little structure where everything is, all the people inside are working in like a almost like a ballet, as they put it, and people working on like cooking the burgers, others processing the condiments, the 2 pickles and a pinch of onions, and like kind of this little machine that's kind of squished the ketchup of mustard in it. It's all like very fast paced, fast food. And Croc, wants to invest in this, and he wants to franchise it. Of course, they expressed like they tried, but it's hard because they had nobody who they trusted to maintain the integrity of how they operated, in their particular building, and expected to work in other buildings in other states. It was all trash. But Croc decides like I can make this work, so he starts working with like banks in order to get the loan, or to start setting up a spot in Des Plaines, Illinois. And of course, he slowly but surely, even after signing the contract and everything like that, he slowly but surely started to notice they didn't, waste any time. This dude's like slowly but surely trying to like, taking over. And uh, he eventually put his own house up for collateral, unbeknownst to his wife. And of course, he started butting heads with the brothers, who expressed to him he's only like, only goes so far, and he feels kind of restricted. But eventually, after it's revealed that he put a house of collateral because the bank guy called his house when he tried to make sure he only calls his office, but he hasn't been answering his phone because he's been late on the payments. Uh, 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 he meets up with Fred Turner, who overhears the whole situation, decides to help him out in order to, gave him the idea that, he can garner more control because he technically can be considered a real estate agent because he's the one that went out, find the plot of land, set everything, the structure of in different places, which is outside of the brothers' purview. As Croc put it, it's like, anything within inside the McDonald's building, yeah, that's your realm, but it stops at the door and the floor. That's my realm now. So I can call the shots and you can't say nothing. But eventually, meets up with a lawyer trying to get out of the contract. He ends up, because he has the idea about getting more wealth, cutting out costs, and paying, certain people by getting this idea from the woman named Joan, who will later be his wife, who was already married at this point. You can see how scummy she is in this. But, or at least more of an opportunist, where, at least how she's depicted in the film, where she came up with an idea about because the milkshake machines, you don't really have to get actual milk like the brothers made sure they do. They pretty much cut the cost of that by buying these instant milkshakes, powdered milkshakes. It's pretty much, to her point of view, and Croc will agree, it's like, yeah, exact same thing. Barely taste the difference. The milkshake machines nowadays is like, I'm shocked to find any working one at all. I'm pretty sure people will kill for just the instant ones, just to have something working. But anyway, they end up, it's not a scene, but you can clearly tell they're going to have an affair. Her husband kind of drops out, Ocean Master pretty much dropped out of the entire film after they got their box of powder milkshakes they plan on distributing. He eventually tells his wife that he wants a divorce. He doesn't care about getting rid of the house or the insurance of the car. It doesn't matter to him. He wants to make sure she doesn't touch the McDonald's, not one shred of the McDonald's stock. So, like I said, it shows this guy is ruthless. And to be like a businessman, you gotta have that kind of mindset. Sadly, I mean, it's very few, wealthy men out there in the world that made their billions without having to be that cutthroat. But let's be honest, they probably had to step over a couple of people at least in order to get to where they are. Maybe Ben and Jerry's and Bill Gates is probably like the only two or three, I should say, that I can think of that probably did not have to do all that stuff. But who knows? Because we haven't lived their life. I'm pretty sure there's been biopics about them. I'm not sure about Ben and Jerry's, but I'm pretty sure early on in their, path to this greatness, they have to do something that probably wouldn't, to this day, wouldn't really sit well with them. They probably wouldn't be too proud of. So you'd be hard pressed to find someone that actually, like I said, it's a very small amount of people who actually probably made multi millions, if not billions, without having to be that ruthless. And one of the quotes that Croc has about, if you see somebody drowning, you stick a hose in his mouth, and get a hose and stick it in his mouth, kind of thing. It's like, F him if it means your survival. That's just that guy's mindset. They made sure to include that quote in this film. The brothers got so upset. The one who seems so, not passive, but is more of like a little bit more easygoing, ends up getting a heart attack. Didn't die, but the stress of it all like really got to them, because this dude was pretty much taking over. And then Croc comes over, not necessarily under a guise. He was pretty much like blatant with it. He like came with some flowers and then a card inside is like a blank check, is willing to like give like a percentage, of whatever, to the brothers each, in order to gain control over the McDonald's corporation, where he slowly turned it into like a like a real estate corporation, eventually to the McDonald's corporation. Try to, backdoor his way into full control. Very slick. So they decided to, the brothers decided to agree of 2.7 million each, the rights to the San Bernardino location, and 1% of future profits. But they didn't get the profits. It was like agreed upon with a handshake agreement, which is not like, technically is binding, but not really. But around lawyers, so it's kind of like it would got witnesses. But that 2.7 million would have been, by when this movie came out, or at least no, by 2024 standards, it would be around 24 million each. Hell, in terms of like future profits, at least like royalties, the brothers should have gotten, like, at least the families of those brothers should have gotten like 100 million each in like each year. It's like pretty much like set for life. But they got, he made sure they got zip beyond the 2.7 million. That was like a big money at that time. But this dude was effed up. He had a talk with what was Nick Offerman's character, Richard, and he asked him, like, look, we showed you, what went on behind the scenes. Why don't you just take it then? And he's like, yeah, I knew right away I wanted to take it then. But the issue was, compared to anybody else you probably showed this to, and they tried to replicate it but failed, because they didn't have what you have, the name. Because McDonald's is America. I can't just go and call this thing Croc, because it doesn't sound right. It's not American. It was like it's a play on the word, or the saying, well, a little crock. And no one wants to go to a burger joint that names Croc, but McDonald's, that is an American-born name for an American-born restaurant. That means something. It is right up there with the American flag and the Christian cross, where everybody congregate. And so he eventually took over, became like uh, you know you know the main guy, who owns the McDonald's Corporation, and then eventually Fred Turner kind of succeeded him, who then took the corporation worldwide and had like the restaurant in every country. There's an epilogue where it's like Kroc's secretary June became part owner in the McDonald's Corporation. Sonneborn was made president and CEO, but quit after a falling out with Kroc a few years later. Never speaking of McDonald's again for the rest of his life. Turner succeeded Kroc as senior chairman, expanding the company worldwide. Kroc and Joan remained married until Kroc's death in 1984. Kroc's San Bernardino McDonald's drove the McDonald's brothers' original restaurant out of business in a few years. Kroc did not honor his handshake deal. The McDonald's brothers were never paid their royalties, which would eventually have been over $100 million a year. McDonald's feeds about 1% of the world's population every day. And I wanted to make sure that I also include the actual accuracies of the founder. One second. And the film is largely accurate regarding Kroc's biographical details and the timeline of events. It simplifies certain aspects such as initial franchising by the brothers and the extent of Kroc's contractual violations and business-savvy innovations. The movie accurately portrays the McDonald's brothers' initial lack of ambition for expansion compared to Kroc, but sometimes oversimplifies the complex business and legal maneuvers that led to Kroc taking control. What's accurate is the biographical details. The film is generally accurate about Kroc's background, his initial struggles, and his discovery of the McDonald's system. The brothers' vision is accurately depicts the brothers as focused on perfecting their restaurant system rather than on aggressive large-scale expansion. Iconography and branding. The movie is highly accurate in its depiction of the original McDonald's restaurants and branding, using the meticulous research to get the details correct, as the company allowed its iconography to be used in the film for accuracy notes for the film's accuracy. Kroc's ruthlessness. The film captures Kroc's aggressive dog-eat-dog business mentality, and certain memorable quotes are his actual words. Was inaccurate. Initial franchising. The movie implies Kroc came up with the idea of franchising, but the McDonald brothers had already begun franchising before they met him. Kroc's innovations. While Kroc was instrumental in expansion, the film oversimplifies how some key developments like the Golden Arches came about. It was like a completely, not even the brothers came up with the idea, it was somebody they knew before they met Kroc. Contractual details. The film omits some of the legal and financial complexities of Kroc's dealings with the brothers, such as the fact that he had an ironclad contract but continued to operate outside of it. And family relationships. While his relationship with his first wife was strained, the movie's depiction of Kroc's relationship with his second wife, Joan, is not entirely accurate. There's no evidence of the brothers ever getting their 1% down the line, as claimed by a nephew of the McDonald's brothers. Neither of the brothers publicly expressed disappointment over the deal. The McDonald's did use the powdered milkshakes in the past, but this is a point of debate and often misrepresented by the movie. While the film dramatized Croc's decision to switch from real ice cream to powder mix to save costs and simplify operations, historical accounts suggest that the powder mix wasn't used. Instead, a dairy developed the mix for McDonald's in the late 60s or early 70s, but it was likely a pre-mixed liquid rather than a powder. Uh, I mean, at this point, I'm not even sure if the. I'm pretty sure the Bros has some family members still around, like a nephew and stuff. At this point, you would think, especially after the founder came out, that the McDonald's Corporation would have thrown in some type of royalties to as a way to make things right with the family of the brothers, given the fact that their founder screwed them royally. No pun intended. It's just I don't know, man. It's really effed up. It would have been like it would look so good to the McDonald's Corporation now if they decide like, hey, we want to right this past wrong by our founder, or founder, quote unquote, by what Ray Kroc did to the brothers who were the originators of McDonald's. We wanted to make sure that any living relatives will get these royalties that is owed to them. That would have been amazing if they do that. They still could do that. I'm not sure why they just like, well, it's in the past, can't do nothing now. Like, no, you can still do something now. It's only right. Like, the historical situations. Whoever's like the current owner of the McDonald's Corporation right now, and I'm pretty sure it was fully aware because I gave the go-ahead to have this biopic made about the creation of McDonald's. Clearly, you're fully aware about the actions of Ray Kroc, and only right to try to at least, make up for past wrongs done to the family or the brothers. I don't know. It's just like, at least that's my mind, because kind of washed away some level of sin from that birthed this entire corporation. But anyway, that was the founder. You leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about like this whole entire depiction of this character. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm curious to know what you guys think. Like, should the McDonald's Corporation try to make things right with the families of the brothers? Anyway, I got, there will be more movies, coming up for this month to celebrate family, food, and Native American culture for the month of November. So look forward to that. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Don't know where I'm streaming, but probably gonna be Digimon. If I don't feel like completely 100% in doing so, I'll probably do something quick like Marvel Rivals. Just probably maybe to wrap up one more day with Star-Lord before I move on to Daredevil. But anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Take care. And I'm curious to know, do you feel, after watching this, do you feel like eating some McDonald's right now? It's kind of funny. But anyway, I'll see you guys later.